Welcome back, and thank you for staying with the NTV Weekend Edition. Now, if you may remember, a month ago, the Water and Environment Minister Beatrice Anywar called for a ban on the use of polythene bags, also known as Kaveera, and farming in the swamps. Now, while some people have called the ban impractical, others think it is long overdue. And we know that it is important to protect our environment, because a healthy environment does guarantee the healthy livelihood of the people. So tonight, we have Mr. Joseph Mukasa, who is a Senior Research Fellow at Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment. A very good evening and welcome to NTV Talk of the Nation.
Good evening, Sandra, and good evening, viewers.
So tonight we talk about the ban of polythene bags, farming in swamps. But we know that the main point we're having this discussion is to simply talk about environmental protection. Why is it important for us at this very time to actually be talking about the ban of polythene bags and farming in swamps? Is it important? Is it even practical?
Thank you, Sandra. For the start, Uganda joins a list of so many other countries in the world who have recognized the danger presented by the plastic bags, call it Kaveera, on the environment but also on public health. So having realized that, most of the countries are now trying to see how they can enforce a total ban on these polythene bags. Some have made strides,
yes.
Others have failed. In a bid they fail and try again. If I were to give you an example around East Africa, for example, Rwanda, they have succeeded in having the total ban on Kaveera implemented. In Kenya, they struggled a little bit in the beginning. Yet they first talked about it, actually much earlier than Rwanda did. They struggled since 2005, and in 2018, they managed to make headways in implementing the policy. In Uganda, we try and fail, and now this is about, I think, the 5th time, if my memory serves me right. 2005, 2009, 2015, 2018, and now
Another
2021.
ban has been put in place.
And we try and fail and try and fail. So it's not negotiable that we should have a total ban on Kaveera, given its impact. Number one, it affects the soils. Uganda is an agricultural country. So if these plastic bags were to stay here, and remember they are not, they don't decompose so fast. They take thousands, if not millions of years to decompose. So what will happen to agriculture, because now the soils will get destroyed, because where the Kaveera is, no water can penetrate into the subsurface to support our plants. Again, we have heard of the Cancer Institute, for example, in Mulago, relating some of the cancerous incidences to the polythene bags. People who use polythene bags during cooking. But again, the other challenge is that even if you try to destroy it, it is made up of hydrocarbons, which are greenhouse gases. If you burn it and it goes into the atmosphere, number one, it affects a person who is within the ambience, because of the toxic fumes that come out, but also it contributes to the ozone layer, which in the end also contributes to climate change that we are having on the globe. So Kaveera ban is long overdue. However, the challenge is how to do it. That's where the biggest challenge is. But as for it to be nowhere on the surface of the earth, yeah, it is a very welcome move, and that's what everyone would want.
So you definitely do accept that as a country we should enforce and get serious on banning the use of polythene bags and also farming in swamps. However, we know that different retail shops, different supermarkets do use polythene bags. How practical, again, is this is this ban?
That's the challenge, that's the reason we have failed to implement this ban. Number one, it's a very big business. Polythene bag is a very big business and lucrative business at that. So you want to bring a ban for Kaveera, which has, number one, which brings in tax to the country. Number two, which has a very big business portfolio, where businessmen and companies individually can influence the policymakers to rescind their decision. But also, the other challenge is that what happens then? What's the alternative?
That people should use, for instance.
Exactly. But to me, as an environmentalist, that shouldn't be a big problem. I mean, the Kaveeras were here only since 1970s from the oil and gas sector of the United States. What were people using before then? Were we not surviving? So it's all about how to manage change. And also, if we impose the total ban on Kaveera, I can guarantee you, Sandra, we shall have alternatives which are more sustainable to our environment.
Now that brings me to the question of enforcement. We did see the minister say, when she was asked, those that will be affected, either those that are farming in the swamps or that are selling or using polythene bags, how they would be compensated. In fact, the minister did say that the government is the one that should be compensated. Now that simply shows that people will not be encouraged to stop whatever they are doing. On that exact idea of enforcement, as a ministry, how should we refocus to see that we achieve what we want to achieve?
As it is, with all due respect to the minister, enforcement will be very difficult with the total ban on Kaveera.
Yes.
Look at this. The National Environment Act, which is the law on environment that has just been amended in 2019, exempts plastic bags of above 30 microns. So, for you, I'm saying of a total ban. How will you balance the two? The law does not talk of a total ban. It instead exempts polythene bags of above 30 microns. But the cabinet is saying it is now a total ban. So it would be easier to enforce it if they first now amend the law again to provide for a total ban. And then it would be much easier to implement it, because now the two will be in harmony. But as it is now, I can guarantee you enforcement will be extremely difficult, and I don't see it succeeding.
Speak to us, Mr. Mukasa, on the issue of farming in swamps. We've talked a lot about polythene bags, but farming in swamps, why is it important for us as a country, even before the ministry comes forward to, enforce all the different directives? Why is it important for individuals, for Ugandans who are currently farming in the swamps, putting up structures in the swamps, to rethink what they're doing?
Well, swamps are very important because they are ultimately into the water cycle, the water system of the earth. Of course, people will continue reclaiming the swamps for one reason or the other. Number one, the people in the villages who are looking at what to eat tomorrow, and given the population growth that we are currently having, land is reducing in size, but people are continuing to produce. So they are now encroaching on those areas like swamps, which were originally preserved for their purposes, and therefore they have no option but to encroach on them. But for big people in Kampala who are also reclaiming lands for structures, they do it knowingly. Of course, reason being they are looking at the economic benefit much more than the environment benefit, not knowing that ultimately the environment will always claim its space. We have seen of recent the water levels of Lake Victoria rising. How about those who had constructed structures close to the shores? They suffered. So environment will always claim its space. So the idea is that we give it its space before it comes for it. After all, its space is there. As for our poor farmers in the villages, apparently that's not extremely detrimental, because after all it is subsistence farming. So in that case, they are farming at a small scale in the swamps, but they are not even using chemicals for that matter, because we know how our smallholder farmers do it. So that's not my big worry. The biggest worry is commercial agriculture, clearing completely the wetlands, and then you are using chemicals, literally abolishing or completely removing the wetland. So in that case, you are causing much more harm than my villager in Katerananga in Mbarara who is using a hoe to till. Of course, I'm not saying that they should go do that because of it has its own, wetlands have their own importance. So they shouldn't by any imagination be tampered with.
All right. Now, from this conversation, we can clearly see that it is very important for all of us to work together to see that we give nature its own space. Like you mentioned, sooner or later, it will come back for its space. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Just in a second, what is your takeaway? What for the viewers that have watched us this evening, what should the takeaway be when we talk about environment, when we talk about polythene bag usage, when we talk about farming in swamps? In just a second.
The ban on polythene bags is a very welcome move. It's a very welcome move and it is long overdue.
Yes.
My opinion or suggestion to the minister and anybody who is trying to enforce a total ban is that we should make a plan.
Yes.
Because if we say with immediate effect, we are bound to fail. That will fail completely, and therefore we shall even fail to get the morale of resurrecting the idea in the shortest time.
Yes.
As for the for wetlands, commercial farming, commercial construction in wetlands, that shouldn't be the issue really. That should be a no-go area. But I also understand the challenge that government is facing. Our people have run short of land, but it should be a process. Number one, educate the people. Show them the importance. Show them why you're chasing them away from the wetlands, and then they will comply. Yes. Ultimately, even if you use the force to remove them, but when they are aware, well aware why you are removing them from the wetlands, they'll definitely comply and they'll understand what you're doing, that it is right.
All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you as well for being part of this conversation, and you too can send us your thoughts on our social media platforms. We'll take a short break and NTV Weekend Edition will continue shortly.